Okay, okay, you fixed it. Everything's good. That sounds like one of those like alt-tab bugs or what have you. That was in the middle of his introduction. So still have to say, in the top left, we have this guy, the red Protoss player. He is Strange.
Strange does look like one of these badass guys from these Hollywood movies, you know. He's like, we need bodyguard, and then Strange walks in. He's like, hello, I protect you. I was like, oh no, you don't mess with that dude, man.
No, absolutely not. And he's out for blood here. So very exciting times. I love it. Well, the names are just great too. I think it's I said Strange's name is Nikita, and I love Nikita Gurovich or something like that. I love that. There's some really great names from over there. I won't lie, especially being of Russian descent myself. I'm a big fan of Mikhail. I think that's a great name, as well as they got a lot of good ones.
I always like Vladimir. That's
ooh, spicy.
Andrei, Alexei. You know,
Alexei's Alexei's a phenomenal name.
Petr, I like Petr too. Yeah, SKillous' name, Nikita. It's somewhat common too. Let's see what the boys have in store for us. Strange has decided to go for a wall off here, so he's not going to do anything fancy like not walling off. He's opening up Stalker's Sentry. SKillous is a big fan of the 4 Stalker opening. He's not going to do it this time, but I often joke that SKillous and I are the only 2 Protosses in Europe that try to win a fight with 4 units against 4 units and a battery. And neither of us has ever succeeded, but we keep on trying. But it seems like SKillous has thrown in the towel, and he's like, you know what? Maybe I shouldn't open up with 4 Stalkers. Let's just go for a Sentry and get a little scout going.
Now, when we talk about this map, I mean, you have the kind of late game sort of oriented layout. The third base is very close by. There's not an easy direct path to the third that doesn't also go to the natural. So we typically see players kind of bringing the economic focus here, but for the same reason, people try to also take advantage of that and bring that early pressure. But thus far, it's been a little bit of slow your base down, a little bit of you slow my base down. But they both basically get their nexus at the same time, and they've been pretty much going for the same direction so far. So we'll have to just wait and see which tech choices they want to go for, whether those are also mirrored. And maybe it just turns into one of those good old-fashioned who can get a better surround because we both got 20 charge lots, 3 Immortals, and 3 Archons.
Yeah, Strange is a very big fan of the Blink Stalkers. Now, most people are in PvP, don't get me wrong, but he's the kind of guy that I think is willing to avoid the Zealot Archon phase and just try to make magic happen with a ridiculous amount of Blink Stalkers. And if you can hit right before Disruptors are out or your opponent has a crucial count of Immortals, they can absolutely make the difference. Because Zealots are good against Stalkers, but obviously having like 8 Zealots running into 20 Stalkers, that doesn't really do anything for you. So there are definitely some funny timings you can find. I often find it a bit of a mystery how they find them, but these guys are just very good. And they can definitely make unit compositions work where you feel like, shouldn't you transition? But then it's actually better to not transition and to keep spamming more basic units.
Yeah, and so far, that seems to be the direction we're headed in. We've got Blink booting up for Strange. Twilight is about to finish for SKillous, and there it is. +1 attack immediately with it. Very well mirrored strategies. Is there anything that is there a specific timing window that we should be looking out for? Are they just going to try to both immediately start fighting once Blink finishes? Is that where this is going to go, or is it maybe a little bit more? Someone's going to try to take that third base before the other and turn it into a defensive situation?
I actually think they're just going to go up to 3 bases and stabilize on 3 bases. And then I think it becomes interesting once they go up to 4 bases, because that's really where you start spreading yourself thin. And maybe the other guy can make some magic happen. Strange already building a pot on the bottom side. SKillous was a little bit later on +1, but he goes up to 3 bases a bit quicker. I do think that Strange is going to do the same thing. I guess we can also keep a close eye on the worker count, because just because you go up to 3 bases, that doesn't obviously mean that you have to go up to 55 probes. You can actually also stop at like 44 and then try to hit a devastating timing attack.
All right, well, SKillous has been the first to plop down that third nexus, so let's see if Strange is following suit. I guess he's just waiting for the minerals there, and it's a nice slow start to this one, Kev. We get to experience the peak of PvP, a true macro game. No proxied robo this time, no void rays being rushed at the natural, no need for 7 shield batteries in one's main base, but there is a little pylon forward on that southwest part of the map. Strange is going to get his stalker count up as Blink finishes, and I'm sure at the very least we're going to see them looking for those opportunities to trim out some of the units on the edge, maybe snipe a pylon, and if the army, you know, manages to not be in the right spot, maybe get something a little bit more than that. He's got sentries here with it too, Roddy.
I mean, Strange is warping in 4 more gateways now, so I have the feeling that he's quite serious about this, and he's going to show up right when +1 is ready. But I really don't think that he's supposed to make too much happen here. He is going to try, though, but there are a couple of shield batteries. There's always battery overcharge. Decent force fields there. 1 sentry goes down, but it's not like Strange has a big unit advantage, so I still don't really see this have a happy ending for the Red Protoss player.
Yeah, he was just trying to force it looked like just an early micro fight, but SKillous is also adding extra gateways with this. So at the end of the day, he just has his third base a little bit faster. Both players kind of traded out those sentries. The probe counts, you know, I mean, a little bit higher for SKillous, but is it a significant difference at this point?
Well, I think if you put the 2 and 2 or the 1 and 1 and 2 and 2 together, like 6 worker advantage is nice, but then much quicker third nexus is also nice. He started up +2. He already has an immortal on the way. Strange also just kind of donated 3 sentries. Yeah, I think we're actually starting to head into a pretty serious advantage for SKillous, and Strange is just putting himself in a position where, in a weird way, he needs to end the game. He wants to end the game, but how is he going to end it here, running into batteries and an immortal? He's going to have to display some phenomenal micro.
Yeah, using a slow warping off that pylon isn't going to help either. He doesn't have any extra upgrades or probes in production, so I think you're on it, Kev. He's going to try and force the issue here. Guardian Shield gets popped. It's pretty much just all stalkers. Not a lot of sentry energy for force fields or anything like that. So he's going to dive on top of the immortal, clicks directly onto it, picks that off. The shield battery overcharge comes in. SKillous is the one with the unit count advantage, so he's going to continue to warp it in the back. Having those shield batteries is just so nice. And like you said, Kev, that money is starting to turn into the army supply tilting back in favor of SKillous as he continues to warp in and reinforce and defend. Some of the probes are dying, though, as additional stalkers get warped. If he can get on top of that
fine.
prism.
He has already killed 6 workers with 2 adepts in the beginning, and he has 2 more adepts shading into the natural, so he's going to kill a few more probes. Strange is displaying some cool micro, and he is very, very decisive, but it just feels that he's sweeping leaves on a windy day here. I think no matter how good his micro is, he is not supposed to win this game. Charge is about to finish up, +2 is about to finish up, and these adepts are now even in the main base. We can take a quick look at the adept in main base of Strange. There's an adept with 9 kills, Nadipoo.
Oof. That's a lot of damage, Kev. Getting the economic backstab now. 57 probes to 43. Definitely a favorable position for SKillous. And like you said, he has charge done now. He has his +2 done. Yeah. So his stalkers are just straight up better. And with Zealot fodder, it's going to become way tougher to try and micro on the defensive side. So that's, I guess, what it all boils down to. Strange was on a similar track to SKillous, but then once we got that +1 in Blink, he said, I'm just going to try and do everything I can to kill the other guy now. I feel like SKillous is going to be hard pressed to be stopped once he moves out. I'm not sure Strange is going to have a very easy time defending against his next attack.
I thought he did a good job with the forward blink, gunning down the immortal immediately before shield battery overcharge, because I was like, he is so close to all the units now that maybe he can actually gun down a couple of stalkers before battery overcharge can make the difference. But to explain to people at home, it's very risky to grab all your stalkers and shoot at one stalker of your opponent, because if that stalker randomly blinks back, you just wasted the potential damage of like 15 plus stalkers and you don't even kill a unit. And one missed volley like that is enough to lose the fight. So you're kind of forced to attack move, and that's obviously where shield battery overcharge is always going to make the difference. SKillous just has way too much, man. This game is super over. SKillous knows it. Strange knows it. He's going to do his best to wipe in a couple of slow defensive zealots, but that Robo Bay is not going to be up in time, and we are looking at a 1-0 lead for the Molodoi Bratan, the young one, SKillous, as he displayed some really good micro and good decision making and just excellent understanding of PvP.
Yeah, very solid game. Nothing super crazy to write home about. They both powered up, got to that 3 base phase, and you were talking about it. He could kind of stop around that 44 probe mark, which is about where he did, and just went straight into mass warp-ins. But having the shield batteries defensively when you have the same number of units and the same upgrades just puts a little bit too much pressure on the aggressor to take frankly impossible trades. Right? He was never going to break him there unless he accidentally move commanded into those stalkers. So a big Big pickup there for SKillous and a confident display in game number 1.
Yeah, and the icing on the cake, even though we were mostly looking at the dick fight, were the 2 adepts. Because if it's just like a trade out and Strange actually can only focus on this fight, maybe he would have traded out even a bit better. And then you can say like, this was actually all right. He got himself in a favorable spot, but he lost 13 probes at home against just 2 adepts. And those 2 adepts also forced out defensive warpins, which means Strange was never going to snowball on the other side of the map. It just made it, in the end, a relatively easy hold for SKillous. And honestly, kind of felt that SKillous felt that this was coming. I think he knows Strange quite well. And that's why, because normally you don't even have double battery there, but he went double battery immediately, where he's like, I know what kind of a guy you are. I know that you like to end it. You don't really like to sit back and both get Zealots with Charge and Archons and Immortals. No, you're going to try to make the difference. While I'm transitioning, you're going to try to overrun me with units. And I'm just going to make sure that that doesn't happen.
Yeah, a beautiful way of describing it, Kev, as we are going into 2,000 atmospheres for the second map. SKillous has to still be, of course, feeling great after the way that one went down. We are counting down into it, and we're going to see if Strange maybe decides to mix it up. Maybe we'll have a little bit of that crazy aggression thrown in there, because at some point, when you play a game like that, where it's about as even of a setup as it could be, you're trying to force something to happen and you can't make it happen. Maybe you have to play for something more misdirection based, try to hide something, be maybe a little cheeky proxy early on, or maybe a little bit of greed to offset that very, very straightforward and standard setup. But we are loaded in, and I guess we're going to have to find out. We'll get all the answers in just a few minutes time, as we have in the top right position of 2,000 atmospheres, our blue Protoss player. He is SKillous.
Before this best of 3 started, of course, SKillous was 1-0 in his group because he beat Battleby. In the bottom left side, we're looking at the main base of the man who started this group 0-1 after losing a PvP to Christianer. This is the older Russian Protoss, Strange.
All right, and sends that probe out after the gateway. Presumably to scout, right? Nothing. We're not expecting SKillous to do anything crazy this game, right?
No, maybe he's worried that Strange does something extreme, like a Nexus first or a 1-gate fast expand on the low ground, and he just wants to be aware of that ASAP. So sometimes it's nice to switch up your probe timings a little bit to make sure that players can just get away with crazy stuff.
That's a completely reasonable and fair analysis as he comes in. Doesn't see anything super crazy. The gateways are where they're supposed to be. It's not a forge. There are no probes in his natural. So at the very least, he can say, okay, whatever it's going to be, it's not going to be super crazy. Nothing that he has to spend too much time worrying about. We'll still probably progress through the normal setup. And Strange, he's got his probe going in just a little bit later, and he's going to see the same thing. So it kind of comes back down to, again, when are we going to see the expansion timings? Maybe when the cybernetic score finishes, he'll go straight into his tech and not focus on having the economic follow-up. But he might also just respect SKillous a little too much to think that he can one-base him, right?
Double Stalker opening for SKillous, I think, on this map. This is the kind of map where SKillous, like, no, oh my goodness, he has really went away from the 4th Stalker opening, even go Stalker Sentry here. Strange on the other end. Maybe he is going to do something that you were just talking about, Nate. I think Strange is pretty good with like the 3-gate Robos if he feels like that's what he needs to do. I do want to mention, by the way, that we have 2 other series played in this group today. They happen over at the B stream. ESO_SC2B. Denver got a 2-0 over Battleby, and Raynor got a 2-0 over Christiane.
Yeah, not the craziest upsets there, but always nice to get the updates. Check them. I love how we've been able to pull those up a little bit on during the breaks to keep everybody up to date on what's been going on. Lots of games being played. Lots of games still to be played. It's gonna be a nice long season again, Kevin. You know, that's the best way for it to be.
Strange is floating a bit of money, and that means he is just going to drop the Nexus, so he won't do anything wild on one base, but he does have a 4-Stalker opening. SKillous has 4 units as well defensively, and that shield battery is going to be done, I think, by the time that the units of Strange make it to the other side of the map. So the tables have been turned. It's actually Strange going for the 4-Stalker opening. If I wouldn't know the nameplates, I would say this was the other way around, and Strange would have been SKillous, and SKillous was Strange. But Strange is about to find out the same thing that SKillous and I have found out many, many times, and that is that with 4 Stalkers in the beginning of the game, you can't really do a whole lot. if your opponent has a battery.
Yeah, that's astute analysis, Roddy. The shield battery is going to give that defensive sustain. Doesn't necessarily have to have the same stalker count.
He's gonna
and
get force
if you
fielded.
get too close, yeah,
He's gonna get force
He's
fielded.
going to get force fielded in, and losing any stalkers here would be pretty rough.
I'm actually surprised that SKillous didn't want to go for it there. Maybe he's worried that he needs the force fields more later on. But he absolutely could have trapped one or even two stalkers there, and he would not have lost anything. Now, actually, the shield battery has been drained. Oh my goodness, SKillous does get a kill. He gets the second kill. Will, and strange that is, will end up losing one stalker. But hey, that's a stalker for a stalker in the sentry. Now, there are some extra adepts showing up. Oh my goodness, Strange is the first guy ever to out-micro the shield battery, Nate.
That is fascinating. Gets through all that energy early on, and with the two stalker pickoff, you'd think, okay, you made the defensive investment, but I was on the same page as you. Would have liked to see him try and squeeze those force fields in perhaps a little bit earlier. Probe is on top of the ramp to block for the adept, so Strange will not be able to slink in just yet.
We got to talk about what's happening, and that is, of course, that Strange is gearing up for another timing attack by the looks of it. He's going to try to keep SKillous busy. 2 Adept Shade into the back of the Natural, and he's going to recall these Adepts home after killing 1 probe. But he already has that Robo, like the lovely Observer. That's not Njal today, guys. We've got a replacement Observer. I believe Njal will be back tomorrow. Showing us first Immortals out. Good scout here by SKillous. If I'm SKillous right now, I build an extra battery or 2 almost immediately, Nate, because you know what's coming, and you know that you have one job and one job only at this point, and that is survive.
And it's not like the shield battery has a tremendous amount of energy on it either. Oh, one of the adepts. Okay, so cancels. If both get in, maybe that's where things get a little more tense. You definitely don't want to be repositioning your army away from the natural when your opponent has 4 sentries with a healthy amount of energy to possibly block that ramp. Although, let's be fair, Skillous's blink is also about to finish too, so that's going to help a lot.
I mean, battery overcharge is good, but how good is it really? It's going to get popped immediately. It keeps the stalkers alive for now. I mean, how good is it really? I don't think Skillous...
Dangerous question to ask when there's Twitch chat nearby.
Well, a lot of force fields were available there for Strange, but that attack didn't quite work out. I think he was really hoping to hit right before Blink was done, because then he would have been able to get an amazing trade there with 1, and a little bit later on 2 Immortals. Now I think that window has kind of passed, but he's going to still try one more time. There is no more battery overcharge, but I do think Skillous has bought enough time for himself to get enough units out.
Yeah, and he's getting that push through, and we're talking about it. I mean, having the blink just gives so much of the utility on that. Goes for the prism immediately, will be able to snipe it down. Both of the Immortals barriers are going to get procced, and they're both still standing strong. He's targeting down those stalkers. The probes attempting to add a little bit of extra damage to this, but not quite enough. And with both of the Immortals still being there, Kev, it's quite dangerous. He's going to finally kill one of them, but there is still so much here for Strange. Up double supply over Skillous. The entire Natural's worth of probes have been wiped out, and perhaps he has been able to bamboozle the blue Protoss. There it is. GG. We're going to game 3.
Pretty sick attack there by Strange. First, you feel like he almost went too early, because he only went with 1 out of 2 Immortals, and he used quite a bit of energy on his sentries, but that actually worked out perfectly. 200 IQ move, because that forced the battery overcharge, and it also forced a couple of defensive force fields out of Skillous. So Skillous had no more force fields to keep the Immortals at bay, and then when the second Immortal and the War Prism showed up, that's when he went again, and at that point, battery overcharge, the cooldown is not very long, but at that point it was still on cooldown. And then Skillous had the decision, do I just stand here and trade against 2 Immortals? No, I can't do that. I see the prism. I should probably blink and kill the prism. He did kill the prism, but then 2 Immortals are just going to town on all those stalkers, and the entire army of Skillous just disappeared. Well done by Strange.
Yeah, I guess looking back, it was almost like a bait that he put the warp prism so close, because he's like, okay, it's not off to the side. You're not going to be able to do anything, fancy. He's kind of anticipating, yeah, you're going to blink directly on it, and I'm going to have my 2 Immortals just kill all your stalkers, because he did have the upgrades, and that was nice. He had the batteries, but it's not like he had this overwhelming number of stalkers that he could have, take a risk like that. But I guess probably didn't think he was going to hold on if the prism was left alive inside of his base either. So not really any easy or good choices, I think, that you can make in that position.
I feel that even though SKillous warped in a couple of extra stalkers, a few extra sentries in a weird way would have been the better choice there, because then he buys more time for himself, he can get more value out of the economic advantage, and then he will have another battery overcharge. And with battery overcharge, he doesn't lose the fight, even against 2 Immortals, but because he had just a few amount of sentries, but he already used that energy at first, those sentries were useless, and Strange is like, alright, the door is wide open, I can just go ahead and go for it. I will walk on right in there. You know you can't force field me out, and I know that you don't have an overcharge. So this is the moment where the Immortals will shine, and he was right. Let's see what Game 3 has in store for us then. In the bottom left side, we are looking at the main base of the younger of the 2 Russian Protoss players. This is SKillous.
And in the northeast, we have the red Protoss player who found a way to tie things up with some good aggressive attacks. He is Strange.
SKillous once more sending out a probe rather early. This is the kind of map, by the way, where I do know that SKillous likes to be aggressive on one base. He often proxies a 3rd gateway or even a robot. Now, I don't know if he does that against people that he considers stronger than him, like maybe a Showtime or a Max Packs, or if he's also willing to do that against someone that he thinks he should probably beat. And if he wants to advance in this group, let's be honest, this is kind of a must-win for SKillous. If he doesn't win today, it's no man overboard, but he does know that he's going to make life a lot harder on himself. And Strange is, by the way, not balling off, Nick.
Then, well, okay, Kev, I feel like you're actually one of the better people that we could ask about this then, because sometimes we see a little bit of this style done, and you're kind of hoping to bait your opponent into being maybe more aggressive than they would or not otherwise normally want to be. Or is there any other reason that he'd be doing this? He just doesn't care. He's just assuming that SKillous, there's no chance he's just going to throw a bunch of adepts at him, or does he want him to throw a bunch of adepts at him?
Well, he definitely wants the first 2 adepts, because he can deal with the first 2 adepts perfectly fine, because he will build a lot of probes. So then even when you shade into his base, and let's say you kill 3 probes, that's nice, but 3 probes cost less than 2 adepts. And if he at that point has more probes than he needs anyway on that mineral line, that's actually a plus EV trade for Strange. So I think in a weird way, he wants to go up against the first 2 adepts, but I said this before, I don't think the first 2 adepts is the reason why you necessarily need to wall off in PvP. It's when they go 6 or 8 adepts, and then they also go oracles. Then I think it's really, really, really hard to deal with all of that if you don't have a wall off. And for the people at home who wonder, like, why would you just not wall off? Why is there a downside? I mean, there are a couple of tiny downsides to walling off. A, it costs more money, because every single time that you want to build a building, your probe has to travel all the way towards the ramp, which may not seem like a big deal, but at the highest level, 10, 15, 20 minerals sometimes are a big deal. And 2, obviously, if you don't have buildings near your ramp, if you're getting contained, you don't have to worry about losing those buildings from your enemy units on the low ground. So that's also kind of nice. So there are little advantages, but of course also a disadvantage, and that is that it's harder to keep adepts at bay.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of interesting things to take into consideration with that. Because I mean, we talk about this and the adepts and whether or not he wants to even try to do something like that, and I guess it doesn't really end up being that big of a deal because there's nothing being thrown towards that ramp. SKillous has the stalkers looking for a proxy or anything that could be out on the map. Hallucinated Phoenix is going to come in and see the Twilight on Strange's part. He does have a pylon going in that northwest corner, so
gateways, I think.
I feel like the expectation still has to be that Strange is going to be the one, forcing the engagements early on, because SKillous in the macro game looked fantastic. But if that extra pressure comes in, we've seen now that is definitely one of the areas where Strange can kind of force some mistakes out of his opponent.
I thought he was going to use that Python on the left side to build some extra gates and then just go for another surprise attack. But instead, Strange is going to use it for adepts. Yeah, I mean, Romanticide was heading into a macro game, but I don't even know if it really truly qualified as like, okay, we're both rich and we both have all the money. You're going to have to see that Strange is a little bit worried about what could potentially be heading his way. Does he have a probe on the high ground? Yes, he does. And he keeps the adepts away. I mean, right now, if you're SKillous, you got to be having some flashbacks of the previous game where you're like, my opponent once more has a very quick robo. This could get dicey, and that's why this time he already has 3 shield batteries in his natural.
take no chances this time. Says, okay, if I can get back to that same situation as last game, even even if we don't have that happen, at the very least he knows that it's going to be easier to deal with. It's not going to be the same degree of madness, and obviously his blink is going to be done in a reasonably quick fashion too. Gas is being taken on the natural for Strange, as he's like in the Immortals. Just the one though, as he goes for the +1, starts up his second. And the Twilight is a fair bit later, so was he planning on trying to hit something here, or just skip the Blink Stalker phase entirely? No, okay, he's not doing that.
Okay, so he's still going for Blink. There's obviously some strats where you can skip Blink and then just try to hit Charge Archon. But like I said before, I feel like Strange has never been that fond of Archons and Zealots. I'm not sure why. There are some moments where he will obviously go for it, but sometimes you just don't have a choice. Your hand is forced. In this situation, it's still kind of feeling like Strange just wants to hit another timing attack, where it's like, hey, we're going to have Blink Stalkers on both sides. We're both going to have +1. The only difference is that I'm going to have 2 Immortals. And then you need to choose, right? If you're Skillous, like, are you going to fight the Immortals, or are you just going to stand there and A-move? But if you A-move, obviously the army of your opponent is going to have more DPS. It's a hard game, I think, to play. Skillous is going to try to blink into the main base, maybe. Yes, he does. He could go for a pylon or 2. He could also go for a couple of probes. It's a funny number. I think he is going to recall these Stalkers out. Oh, there are Sports Fields going down. Adepts in the natural too. That's actually kind of cool. But Skillous needs to be careful though, Nate. If he loses too many units here, Strange is just going to grab everything, walk to the other side of the map, and he's going to try to end it. Yeah, immediate chrono boost on the Robo. I'm kind of worried for Skillous.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, well, that Prism, he's saying, okay, you're willing to throw away some of your army supplies, some of your valuable resources just to kill some probes, and you're taking a third base? All right, this is going to be a huge opportunity to potentially strike back. And I mean, if he doesn't try to do anything past this, like if he just chills or tries to take his third, because his observer sees everything. He's got one right on that little try spot between the 3 bases, so he should be aware of what's happening. If he takes his third, then he's just getting it later. He's just getting everything later than his opponent, right? So there has to be some pressure now for Strange to force some action and get it done. But I think there's like 5 shield batteries all around that area. He's got like 2 by the third, or at least 3 by the third, 3 by the natural. He's feeling good.
Okay, Strange actually has 3 sentries very exposed in the center of the map. This is kind of a crazy move. They just kind of pass the Stalker very casually. But Skillous needs to be careful though. I love the fake Colossus. That's actually kind of smart. Force fields do go down. Stalkers can obviously blink across the force field. It's 3 Immortals against 1 Immortal and 14 Stalkers against 6. The Stalker numbers favor Skillous. Battery overcharge could very well make the difference though. I love that battery overcharge. And I honestly think that's all he needs.
Yeah, a huge chunk of his army got caught attacking 1 Stalker in the natural as well, which had, the benefit of 3 batteries to shield that one up too. So the target fire getting a little bit tricky. Gonna blink forward aggressively. Still has those 3 Immortals trying to target down Skillous' Immortal, and it does get popped. So he still has 2 Immortals that are at full shields and health. He's going to try to focus those blinks behind one more time, just like in that last game. Gets the Prism, but this is still a lot of firepower. The Immortals ripping apart the Stalkers. Not quite as bad as the last time, though, since he's got, what is that, six batteries by the third? If at first you don't succeed, warp in more.
I mean, he is going to hold, but he's down 12 workers, and he's obviously still down the upgrade too, but +1 is on the way. I still think, in a weird way, it's not too bad for Skillous, but it's definitely not great. Let's put it like that. Skillous does have 1 Immortal out now, so that Immortal can maybe keep him safe. I don't think Skillous should have made that blink for the Prism this time, Nate. Like, last game, I understood, even though it really backfired, but I understood. This time, I don't think it was necessary, because I actually think that he was doing fine with just the Stalkers and the probes and warping a couple of extra units. If he holds here again, though, it's still 3 bases against 2. This is real tight. This is a fun game. But with all the batteries and the Immortal, I think I kind of like it for the guy who has 9 workers less and 10 army supply less, which is weird, but I still do.
Yeah.
Oh, DTs, what the hell?
This is perhaps the big play. He did get the Dark Shrine during all of that, and now that worker difference that we were talking about just gets worse. 1 shots the probes. It did not even immediately run away. And I was curious about that, because even with the hallucination, he had the observer there, right? And it was never killed. So he's like, oh, you don't have detection. You're not investing into this. And already it pays off. 7 probe kills right before this fight is huge. He's going to blink forward, focus down that Immortal. Even the overcharged battery is not enough to keep it alive. And he's just going to one-shot all of these units to prevent that sustain from even functioning. It's just not, he's not going to be able to do anything at all. The DT is still on that base. He can one-shot every Stalker that gets in his way. And SKillous is just trying to bleed out as slowly as possible. But I mean, he's just building stalkers right now. So the options as far as the shield batteries go, once they run out of energy, he's not going to be able to fight with lower numbers. Yeah, GG. Strange takes it 2-1.
Damn, I did not see that Dark Stride at all because that